All right, thank you very much. Moving on to Councilmember Boomgarden.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Attended an Economic Development Commission workshop hosted by the city with attendance by the council, Economic Development Commission, and the public. It was a very informative session, and I look forward to some more progress coming out of those meetings. Had the opportunity to attend the River Valley High School, Yuba City High School Mayor's Cup, and provided bodyguard for the mayor as he was mobbed by the Yuba City High School folks, and condolences to Rob Landon for his River Valley Falcons. They gave up. They tried hard. They came up against a very good Yuba City High School team. One thing that's happening here beginning next week, unless it's changed, and I'm not aware if it has, is one of the things that this council's tried to do is try to partnership locally as much as possible. And on October 8th, which is a Tuesday, next Tuesday, Sutter County Supervisors will be holding their first supervisors meeting in this building in an effort to again, share resources where it makes sense to do so. And I think that's a good move, not only for the sharing of the resources, but for the relationship between Sutter County and the city of Yuba City. And finally, city manager mentioned Bob Barkhouse. This was a personal mentor of mine and a good friend, and happy to celebrate his life tomorrow. He was a very good leader for this community who accomplished many things. I think you'll be amazed if you're able to attend the celebration of life to see just what this man did for not only for Yuba City, but for the community. It's simply amazing. And I want to thank Mayor Harris for assisting. I've been asked to MC the celebration of life. This is going to be one of those very honored things to do, but difficult. And personally, I want to thank you, Mayor, for not only being there on behalf of the city, but for assisting with that. I know it means a lot to the family, and it means a lot to the city. Thank you.
Thank you. Councilmember Espindola.
I share in that with you, and I'll be there tomorrow afternoon. But it's a difficult situation, knowing the special relationship between Gail and Bob, and I know he's watching us now, and I hope he's proud of the work we're doing. The economic development workshop was interesting because there was a lot of information to help us drill into specific areas that we, as a city, along with our commissioners, and we appointed 2 new commissioners to be able to help shape some of those potential plans of the direction that our city will be heading. And the fortunate thing is that I think with our new city manager, Michael is he's keen on the idea of how do we pull all these things together. So I appreciate those conversations that we've had so far and continuing, in particular with the housing, because housing is tied into economic development. I was fortunate to be invited to a group of women that is called Power 100. And there are a group of strong women in this community, and I was fortunate to be invited and to share that moment with them. Each woman that signs up, we're committed to 4 different activities throughout the year, and each of us donate $100. And the total of that $100 becomes $10,000, and that $10,000 will be given to Casa Esperanza. So there's a worthy cause in that, and this was all put together by women, for women, and I'm happy to be part of that. Also, it was great to attend the Police Officers Association. Huge turnout. There were so many familiar faces there, a lot of our staff. The majority of us were there, but a great event to be part of. The Arts and Harvest, I'll let our mayor talk more about that, but it's always a beautiful outdoor event, and it was even nicer this year than it was last year. I substituted for our mayor, attended the Yuba City Arts Council. A lot of activity happening with the council, tremendous growth in the last several years. You have a really good team there, Mayor, and Mayor Harris has been extremely active with the group as well, raising a lot of funds and potentially adding some new additional arts and some great ideas that are happening here in the near future. The Mayor's Cup was one of those moments that, thank goodness, I took a jacket and a couple of friends because I needed some some shelter and some bodyguards. It was great energy. I cannot say the students and our community, if you get a chance just to go watch that for a little bit, the energy is so contagious, and it's one of those Friday night games. But boy, Yuba City was just on it. Sorry, Rob. Attended the Soup on Bridges to Housing fundraiser. It's the second year they've done this. It's a small event, but some mighty ladies also put that event together, and local businesses donate soup or community members pot of soups, and they have an artist that makes the bowls, and in the bowls you put your soup and you donate, and that money that we all donate goes directly to Bridges to Housing, which helps individuals that are having housing issues, and they pay for rental and first deposits. And the last, which I want to thank Councilman Shaw, because Councilman Shaw showed up on Saturday in the soft opening of Better Way, and he really, I was so glad that you were there to share that moment of opening the emergency housing that we have in our community. And you provided some additional thoughts and ideas that I think we didn't have in the conversation. So I really appreciate you being there. And Supervisor Dan Flores was there as well. But there are the Tough Sheds, it's open, and I believe they had two individuals. And so we're on our way with some additional resources to help get people into housing and opportunities for them, and to better the quality of this community. That's what's most important. Thank you.
Thank you, Grace. Councilmember Shaw.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. We've all attended a lot of the same events and committees and stuff, so I won't repeat some of the things that's already been said. But we did have the PERS workshop since our last meeting. That is going very well. We were very, very fortunate to have the gentleman come down from the league that used to be there. I think one of their legislative aides or chiefs or something there. Anyway, he knew what he was talking about when it came to PERS. And it was nice to be able to ask some questions, get some clarity. What's happening is the group that is following this journey is finding out there's not as many options available as we all hoped there were. But at the same time, we're trying to figure out into December, where do we go from here? A couple of ideas that have come together is talking to Sacramento. Another idea that's come together that so far has been maybe we lead a coalition of different municipalities to go to Sacramento. So we don't know. We know that sending everybody home is not an option, and canceling pensions are not an option. So all the things that we've heard going is not an option, and it's becoming real. I've thoroughly enjoyed it. We got October. We got 3 more to go. We're halfway through, and I appreciate the mayor being there, and it's been a good time. Transit meeting. The biggest thing that's going on with Yuba Center Transit, we just approved to go out to the RFP. They're going to have to find a new home in the next, could be 10 years, could be a lot sooner depending on what happens with the 70 corridor. So they're going to be looking at feasibility studies for all the changes that go on there, because one of the big changes that comes up in about 15 years is, and that's just a rough guess or time frame, is all of the buses have to be zero emissions, and there's got to be enough power at their facility to charge all of those buses, and they're talking about enough power that would power the city of Marysville is what it's going to take to power those buses. So it's going to be pretty tremendous. So I've spoken with our city manager. We need to keep that on the radar and be open to that, because I know that we'd love to have the transit authority over here. And with the different things that we have going, that would be a great opportunity to continue the partnership, give them the space that they need, and get some more development on this side. So that would be a good plus. The football game, love the Mayor's Cup. Chief, I'm going to give you some armchair coaching here. Okay, go back to the River Valley locker room. Have them start watching all this year's and last year's games of the Alabama Crimson Tide. They'll learn a lot. And at the same time, I encourage you to send film footage from this year's Tennessee Volunteers to Yuba City. And I think you'll be ready for next year. But no, it was a great time. It really was. And thank you to both schools and Yuba City Unified for having us there and letting us be down on the field. It was great. Brought back memories from being in high school. It was really good. Of course, went to the POA pig feed. That was awesome. Love to support our men and women who protect us. So it was my wife's and my great honor to be a sponsor. And we look forward to that next year. We'll be back. Lastly, I will close and just simply put it this way. Tomorrow, we are going to have the opportunity to say goodbye and farewell and honor a man that I have seen be one of the most influential figures of this area, a man of integrity, and a man of great humility. And this community lost a hero. And my condolences go out to his entire family. And my friend, best wishes to you tomorrow, because I know what you've got ahead of you. It's going to be tough. But I cannot think of a finer person to do that. So kudos to you. And our prayers and thoughts are with his entire family. So.
Thank you, Vice Mayor Cardoza.
All right, thank you, Mayor. First of all, also for Bob Barkhouse, he's going to be a great man. He's going to be missed. He was my auto shop teacher at Yuba College, so I've known him for quite a while through the years. Like I said, tomorrow's going to be a tough day. On good news, I'd like to announce, want to thank council for helping me push for the funding from the city. The funding the city helped, also with Sutter County and the school district and everything, but with our assistance. The New Haven project is a go. We received the $8 million tax credit. So New Haven will, they'll be pushing the permits, getting a contractor. We'll be breaking ground hopefully summer of 2020 and closing and being done in 2021. So that's a 40-unit apartment complex on the corner of Miles and Garden Highway. So thank you, council, and it'll be a great 40 folks that will be have housing. I'm not going to repeat. We've done a lot of things together. I attended a ribbon cutting for the council for Burbank Insurance. The mayor and I were there. It was a great time. Another business in the community. They moved over from Marysville over to Yuba City. I welcomed Burbank Insurance to Yuba City. I did the Count Me In With a Cop at the New Earth Market last week. Our police department, also Public Works was there. We had quite a few folks. Our city manager, Michael Rock, was there. We introduced him to some businessmen. Had a fun time there. I attended the Food Truck Mania Sunday. Great time. There was 14 food trucks there. Had your variety of everything and anything. Had a fun time with that. And of course the POA. That was also a great time. And that's going to be it for me this week. Thank you very much.
Busy week. Like Dave said, there's a lot of repeats here, but the EDC workshop was a very informative meeting we all had. And Terrell, thank you for the work you put into putting that together. Very good information. We're looking forward to those partnerships and moving forward with that. It's a big process, but we're going to see some positive results, I'm sure. The PRS workshop, again, thank you, Dave, for attending that. I think they've been at least informative for the folks who are attending, and those of you who are attending. Elaine, I see you out there. for being there, Pat. I think you may have stopped by before too, if I remember correctly. Um, might not be the information we want to hear, but it is what it is. The facts are the facts. So I think it's a good forum for folks to learn a lot, and I know I certainly did the last time. The POA pig feed was quite interesting. It was very good. I didn't get to stay as long as I would have liked to, but thank you very much for the sponsorship on the table, sir. Always good time at that. I did have to step out early to go work at Harvest the Arts, as by virtue of my position on the board for the Yuba City Arts. Went out there to the higher ranch. I think it was as big as it's ever been. We had to extend some of the exhibits out into a different part that we've never used before. So I don't know what the numbers are quite yet, but it would definitely look to be a great success. I had the opportunity to travel to Washington, D.C. last week for to advocate for Beale as part of my role at the Beale Military Liaison Commission. Learned a lot. We had at least 4 meetings at the Pentagon. We met with the Secretary of the Air Force, also Mr. John Henderson, who's the Assistant Secretary for Installations, Environment, and Energy, and General, I don't think I failed to write his name down here. But the point is, advocating for Beale, and what we've learned is you may wonder why, what are Yuba City doing out there for Beale? But Beale brings so much to our economy, and they're a great group of people. And so if there's anything that we can do on our end to help support them and make life easier for them, we want to do it. And so sometimes as civilians, we can say things that folks that wear the uniform can't say to these higher up folks. And we did. And Janice Nall stepped up, and we were there along with Assemblyman Gallagher and also Supervisor Gary Bradford from Yuba County. What we learned was their main thing is housing, especially E5 and below. They have a tough time finding places to live. And so we want to do what we can to help support or encourage them to build housing on base for these folks. But off base, we want to do our part too. When we met with Mr. Henderson, the Assistant Secretary, they asked, what can the local folks do for housing? And so that reverts back to, I want to talk about SACOG meeting, what they call the missing middle. We have low-income housing, and then we have some higher-end homes, but this missing middle is, what so-called missing middle, is where we need to really maybe pay some attention to, and I'll get back to that when I talk about SACOG, but it's interesting how it goes full circle with these other meetings that I attend. But schools, quality of schools. California does not rate nearly as high as we would like it to rate on schools. When you have military personnel come in, they have families. If the schools aren't very good, they're not going to want to come here. And also the Air Force itself takes a look at that, where they want to not only send people, but it affects their decisions when they're assigning missions to certain bases. And it's interesting to know that we have a role locally to do that. Schools, and then reciprocity for spouses. So if you are an airman and you have a spouse and you get transferred from Kansas to Beale and your spouse happens to be a teacher, for example, or a nurse, California won't automatically take their certification. So they're dead in the water as far as a job for a year, 2, 3, or however long they're here. We don't want that to happen. So I know Assemblyman Gallagher particularly dug down deep into that issue. Not a whole heck of a lot we can do here at the local level. We're there to support, but that is something that we need to really concentrate on to help support the Air Force and their mission directly from the Secretary of the Air Force. And also, excuse me, sometimes I can't read my own typing. I thought I wrote his name down. I don't want to disrespect anybody. But we expressed some Kenneth Bray, Associate Deputy Chief of Staff for Intelligence, Surveillance, and Reconnaissance. We expressed some concern that perhaps Beale might be robbed of some missions because a mission is money, locally as well. And other bases were trying to pluck those away from us for money. It's interesting how there's internal conflict in that regard. But we were assured directly from the Secretary's mouth that Beale is solid. And not they know that, yeah, might not have the sexy fighter planes out there and the jets and the war dogs out there, but we have ISRs, as they call it, is very, very critical. A quote from him was, "We can't go kill anything if we don't know where it is," and that's where Beal steps in. All right. I don't mind saying it that way because that's exactly what he said. And so, not only were they saying Beal is solid, but they were saying they're looking at expanding our mission out here, which is outstanding to hear. Again, I have 2 pages here. I don't need to belabor the point, but the point is just that we did a lot of advocating for what we can do out there at the Pentagon. It was an honor to be a part of it. I look forward to more meetings, regardless of where they are, to help support Beal in the way that we can that's appropriate. SACOG, again, some folks think SACOG primarily housing, but they do have a lot to do with, primarily transportation, but they do have also a lot to do with housing. Back to my comment on missing middle, what that means is housing changing for density, but not necessarily housing that looks dense. For example, you can have a big building. It looks like a nice, maybe even a small mansion of a house, but it's actually a fourplex. Things like that. The bungalow courts, if you will, the little houses that you might park here, but then you walk in 50 yards or whatever to the bungalows, the little densing housing. Then the phrase there is density with amenity. So you can't really have a density if these folks that are living like this, who might not necessarily have a vehicle, you have to have amenities close by because it's a walkable community. Because one of the big things when you're trying to do is reduce that GHG, and we have to be down to 19% or lower pretty quickly. And so you can have these houses close, but if they have to drive everywhere they go, it's a problem. So one comes in the other, and that comes into transportation, what we were talking about before. Let's see here. And there was things we can do as a city, amending our zoning to remove barriers to the missing middle, reduce parking restrictions, of course, rate our GHG emissions and the rating structure, which may be changing. It's going to get us, we have a MTP and a MTP SCS that we need to get approved. It's going to affect our ability to get that approved because the federal government's changing some criteria. Let's see here. Then the Civic Lab, they had we're part of that lab for SACOG with our Bridge Street corridor. They gave some very good examples for the city of Live Oak. I'm not tech savvy, or I'd have slides for you, but it was really interesting to see the possibilities. They gave some examples and some possibilities of developing those communities. And the future is a little bit denser housing and try to avoid driving a car. That's what it comes down to, as best you can. And that will mean money, and the government's going to get off your tail if you do that as much. I'm going to go back to Grace's comment on Yuba City Arts. There are some very exciting projects in the works, one of which, and I don't know, maybe Dave would get upset if I say it so early, but that little alleyway next to Cellar and Suds on Plymouth Street, it's a little walkway to the parking lot there. Some cities have what they call neon alley, and we have those 2 signs from the Town Pump and the Spur that folks are trying to, what's the word? Renovate. I guess that's the word. And so if we put those up in that alley, along with a few other things, works of art and whatnot, I think it'd be pretty cool. Actually, a draw for folks. So Dave Reed is working on that as well. I could go on, but let me see. I don't want to miss. Grace, thank you for stepping up for me. I was in D.C. at the time at the board meeting, so you stepped in for me, and I appreciate that. We also had continuing conversations regarding the Public Safety Training Center that we're hoping to have here in Yuba City. So that is not anywhere close to going away. Senator Nielsen remains very strongly behind that. The Mayor's Cup football game was quite interesting. And Rob, the score may have not been in your favor, but I tell you, you had the coolest shoes on. That's for sure. We could see from clear across the field. So that's pretty good. Yeah. Okay, so having done all that, I do also want to acknowledge former mayor and so much more than that, Mr. Barkhouse. What a great man. And the more we dig into his life and meeting with Gail, and it's just amazing the accomplishments a single humble man can do in one lifetime. It was just amazing. So much respect and admiration for that man that we can't even express it. And I've only had the pleasure of knowing him for 3 years. But many people have the honor of knowing him for a lot longer than that, and you'll be hearing from them tomorrow. If those of you who are able to make it will do that. So obviously, with Mr. Barkhouse and Bob in mind, we will adjourn in his honor and memory. Thank you very much.